rolling up in blacked out cars, talking like they own the stars, smiling for the camera flash, hands in your pocket, counting cash. Trust us this time, they'll stay. Same old trick in a brand new script. Waving papers, selling hope. Fine print line is a velvet rope. Blue suits, black hearts, saying we feel your pain from the country club bar. Big speed, fake tears. Every 4 years they remember we're here. They're saving the world on a t-shirt sign while they're sipping that vintage red on your dime. Blue suits, black hearts, they love the power more than the people they mark. Every problem, they've got plans. Step 1, take more from your hands. Step 2, pick a team to blame. Step 3, walk off with the game. Talking justice, talking care, till you ask, hey, why's my street bare? They built mansions on those dreams, then called you cruel when you asked what it meant. Blue suits, black hearts, saying we feel your pain from the country club bar. Big speed, fake tears. Every 4 years they remember we're here. They're saving the world on a t-shirt sign while they're sipping that vintage red on your dime. Blue suits, black hearts, they love the power more than the people they mark. Raise your hand if you're tired of the show. Same old play in a thrift store coat. They talk like saints, vote like sharks, writing your life with invisible marks. Blue suits, black hearts, saying we feel your pain from the country club bar. Big speed, fake tears. Every 4 years they remember we're here. They're saving the world on a t-shirt sign while they're sipping that vintage red on your dime. Blue suits, black hearts, yeah. The mask falls off when the cameras go dark. Blue suits, black hearts, we're done being
Hi, I'm Mike Netter, and each week right here on social media, we do a show called California Free Radio, Behind the Blue Curtain. We're out to bring the truth to California because this just in, you don't get a lot of it from the mainstream media. We're here to represent a lot of candidates that may not get quite the publicity they need. Tune in each week as we discuss what is going on in California and what needs to happen. California.
Hey, boo boo, you like that commercial?
Oh, a nice commercial for Mike Netter for State Senate in District 22 out in the Inland Empire.
Yeah, welcome to California Free Radio. Another live show brought to you by Kurt English and Mike Netter's on location,
Assignment.
on assignment. We'll see. And I'm Scott Piotr.
All day long.
Talk to us about judges. The Supreme Court lowered a biggie.
Well, there's a lot of voter fraud issues, as we know, Scott. And one of
Wait a
them.
minute. Let me write this down. There's such a thing as voter fraud? I thought the Democrats said no voter fraud. Let me write this down.
Democrats lie, Scott.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
I guess lie and people die. So President Trump issued an executive order to prevent the Postal Service from delivering late ballots after Election Day to prevent voter fraud. The liberals state sued and got a liberal judge to issue an injunction. The Supreme Court on a 6-3 vote said that they lifted the injunction and said that the thing could move forward. Now, the liberal states are going to sue again claiming all kinds of constitutional violations. But the DOJ and the Postal Service are already making rules, and we're going to try to prevent some voter fraud using the mail.
Okay, so let me guess. The 3 DEI justices on the Supreme Court, Democrat appointees all, they were the ones that voted against it?
Yes, the 3 incompetent judges, Kagan and Sotomayor and Brown.
And Kenji Brown Jackson, who doesn't know what a woman is. Right. So they're all DEI hires. They're not competent in any form or fashion.
No.
And they voted for it because, hey, they want to be able to cheat. So, okay, so explain.
I don't know if they're cheating. They want the Democrats to be able to cheat.
Well, they want the Democrats to be able to cheat. So explain exactly what this executive order does.
It prevents the Postal Service from delivering ballots after Election Day.
Doesn't it also prevent, I think the concept behind if you were mailed an absentee ballot and you returned it, the USPS will log it in and log it out, or log it out and log it in. So if you didn't get one and you mailed it in, they're not going to deliver it, right? Because you were not authorized to have it.
That's important too.
And I also think they were comparing. They wanted the list of voters from the Secretary of State's, and they wanted to compare it to the Homeland Security list of who's a legitimate candidate and who's or a citizen and who's not a legitimate citizen, to try to get illegals off the voter rolls.
And unfortunately, Scott, states like California are unwilling to cooperate and provide those lists.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't believe is that our governor?
Yes. Gavin Newsom, who cheated on his wife, that governor. And remember, ladies, if you can't trust him with his wife, you can't trust him with your vote.
Oh, you can't trust him with your wife because he did the dirty with his best friend's wife.
Yeah, his campaign manager.
So the I'm going to ask dumb questions. You're the attorney. You can set me straight. The Constitution says, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, that the states are allowed to set the time, manner, and place of their constitution, of their voting, as long as it happens on the first Tuesday following the first Monday of the month of November. That's the only restriction the Constitution puts on it. And so now he's saying the mail service gets involved. Hey, we've got rules. So does that get in the way of that constitutional directive?
Well, I think the issue is the Postal Service is managed by the federal government. There's a separation of powers between the states and the federal government. And secondly, I don't see anywhere in federal law that requires the federal government to cooperate in a conspiracy to commit voter fraud.
Okay. And there's nothing in the Constitution that says the federal government has to give the Postal Service up to the states so that the Postal Service can assist the states in running their elections.
No, I didn't see that provision in the Constitution either, Scott.
So the states are voluntarily using the Postal Service to help run their election system, and now they're surprised when the Postal Service, which is under the executive branch, underneath Trump is the final word on the Postal Service, and the Postal Service is setting up rules in regards to assisting states with their elections, and the states don't like it, or at least the blue states don't like it, right?
Some of them don't. That's true, and they're going to sue again. So this is but the Supreme Court 6-3 decision may have been narrow, but it gives you an indication of what's going to happen in when they deal with the constitutional issues if those are raised.
So what are the chances that these 23 states, or however many they are that are suing, all blue states, California leading the charge, are going to be able to get in front of a judge to get a ruling on this executive order before the election?
Oh, they'll try to forum shop and find a liberal judge, and then I imagine they'll expedite it right to the Supreme Court, because we're getting to where ballots are going to be mailed soon. So it's an urgent matter. And because it's a 6-3 vote, I think you can count on the Supreme Court taking it up in an expeditious fashion.
So because there was an injunction that prevented the executive order from going into effect. Now that's been removed, and there is no further appeal on that. So instantly, the Trump administration is implementing the executive order
And the Postal Service, yes.
and
They're creating
through the
rules.
Postal Service, et cetera. And then, so now what would have to happen is a judge would have to rule on the merits of the case, decide against the federal government, and then give direction as far as how that was going to be implemented and carried out, all prior to when the mail ballots go
Well,
out. I don't see
yeah,
what that
pretty
means.
quickly, right? We're running out of time. Good evening, Stephanie, and good evening, Linda. Thank you for joining us.
So these idiots in Rob Bonta leading the charge. He's the Attorney General for California, who is a pretend Attorney General. He is a political hack using lawfare for with taxpayer dollars to do
Democrat campaigning and political work.
Yeah, right. He's not the chief law enforcement agency of the agent of the state trying to protect the citizens. He's a political hack, and basically they're suing, and they have to get before a judge quickly. They have to show the merits of the case. That means they actually have to have a case, right? You got to have filings. You can't sit there and tell the federal government, hey, we want your filing tomorrow by 5:00 when it's probably a several hundred, if not 1,000-page filing.
Well, but the problem, Scott, is if you have a liberal judge like the 3 liberal Supreme Court DEI hires, they won't care. They could try to issue an injunction, and then the administration would need to appeal to the Supreme Court on an expedited basis to order that injunction be removed.
Well, wait a minute. They just ruled on the injunction that said you can't implement it and basically said you can. So
Yeah,
now
but that was yes, that's true. But I
option is
expect
not-
them to sue
right?
again, and I expect a liberal judge to try to block it again, and I expect it to go to the Supreme Court quickly and have the same result.
So, I mean, didn't this decision come down from the Supreme Court and say, hey, no more injunctions, they're allowed to implement it? You could try it on the merits, but no more injunctions?
Yeah. But if you can't have an injunction to try it on the merit, there's no way that can happen within the time frame before the election, which is now 2.5 months away.
I mean, I'm sure the Democrats already have their case prepared so they can file it and do everything. But,
There's no way to get a trial, to do discovery, to get a trial within 75 days. Can't be done.
Right. They've got to do discovery. They've got to do all these things. They probably have to impanel a jury. I don't know that a judge would decide this. I just don't know.
What do you think about? You're going to have a status conference. You're going to have discovery, depositions. Those things take months, maybe over a year.
Right. And you can file procedural things and everything else. So if an injunction's off the table, it seems to me this will be implemented for November. I mean, mail-out ballots in Orange County, California, where I live, those mail-out ballots are going out basically October 1.
Well, in California, they're going out soon.
Well, I mean, they have to be in their hands. The election is, I think, on the 7th this year or the 5th. And so they want to try and get them in their hands 30 days ahead of the election. So if the election is going to be, election is November 3rd. So that would mean October 4th, they're supposed to be in their hands. So they're going to be mailed out approximately October 1 in order to arrive on October 4. And October 4 is a Monday. So
I got this in the mail today, Scott, that already talks about the November 3rd election, 75 days in advance of the election.
Right. To let you know what is going on and what you can do about it. And we're looking for volunteers and want to hire people and all that stuff. But if all of a sudden they can't mail those out without registering them first with the Postal Service, that's going to throw a wrench in the works. And I don't care how cooperative you are and the Postal Service is. How are they going to implement this sucker in 30 days?
We'll see.
And if there's part of the executive order is basically we're not going to deliver any ballots that we receive after Election Day, or actually even on Election Day, because we're not going to be able to deliver them on election.
What you can expect, though, is if you get a liberal judge, the liberal judge will order the post office to keep those ballots, and they'll try to not finalize the elections until the case is decided on its merits and then appealed to the Supreme Court.
So they can't enjoin the Postal Service and execution of the executive order but they can
They
command them to.
they might be able to order them to not to throw the ballots away or destroy them, but to keep them in a segregated area, the ones they refuse to deliver.
Unless, of course, the executive order also includes a provision saying you must destroy all ballots received after that date.
Well, then what you have is a separation of powers issue. Who runs the executive branch? Does one liberal judge run the executive branch, or the president elected by the majority of electoral votes?
But if the president theoretically is running it, and the Supreme Court just voted 6-3 saying he's allowed to execute his order, and if his order included destroying all ballots received on election day or after, then it seems to me that you can't enjoin him to stop that if the Supreme Court's already ruled that you can't enjoin
them. I didn't say enjoin. I'm saying they could just have an order, don't destroy the ballots. So we have them available in case the plaintiffs win their case.
But wouldn't that be an order to enjoin or an injunction? Wouldn't that still violate?
An injunction is telling you not to do something. If it's an affirmative order, they're saying do not destroy the ballots. That's different. They're ordering to preserve evidence, essentially.
Yeah, well, it's still one of those things to me that if I don't know if the executive order included destroying ballots as a requirement. If it didn't include,
but you're assuming that a liberal judge will follow the law, so that's your first assumption. What I'm saying is you should expect this case to end up in the Supreme Court again, potentially with a decision whether to count the late ballots that have been segregated. And then all the constitutional issues. Don't be surprised, is what I'm saying. Don't be surprised.
Well, nothing that these a-hole judges.
But here's the problem.
Yeah,
you can't say we're going to wait 1 year for a trial and not certify any elections. The red states won't put up with that. They'll just go ahead and certify. The Secretary of State in some of those states is mandated to certify elections within a certain number of days after the election day. Mandated. So they're not going to care what some federal judge in another state says because they have an independent obligation under their state law to certify those election results in a timely fashion.
So I'm reading an AI highlights of the executive order. It directs the creation of the federal mail voter lists, which that alone in 30 days would be impossible.
If you import it from a database, that can be done in seconds.
Well, especially if you take the Doge experts and all those guys, they could do it. They could do it quickly. Of course, the blue states are not giving up their mailing list or their voter list because they're afraid that ICE will use them to go detain illegals. So, to me, then if they don't add their voter list to the USPS list, then they're not allowed to mail ballots using the Postal Service. They can hire their own service to deliver it, but the mail service can't do it. These lists would determine who is eligible to vote by mail. That's not going to happen in a timely manner. Many eligible voters could be excluded from these lists, risking disenfranchisement. That's the liberal AI talking.
Right.
The role of the Postal Service would be tasked with enforcing these new voting rules, and the order could lead to criminal penalties for election officials and mail carriers who deliver ballots from individuals not on the lists.
Oh.
So the executive order threatens to undermine voter privacy, again, liberal AI, and it raises concerns about the integrity of elections by potentially blocking eligible citizens. They don't sit there and say blocking illegals from voting. They say, potentially blocking eligible citizens from voting. So again, liberal AI, this happens to be GoDuckGo AI.
They cite a lot of liberal sources. Go to Grok.
So election chaos, explore more. All right, we'll see what Grok has to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, remember that as TC points out, the judge just said that there's no damages yet. The Supreme Court said there's no damages yet, so there can't be an injunction. So once these rules are they're
actually tested.
Yeah, once these rules are in place, then the blue states could argue they have damages.
Oh, so they'll get around the injunction by saying, now we have damages, now I can enjoy.
Well, no, he could try to issue a new injunction based on a definition of damage, is TC's point.
Same difference, same thing.
All right, let's talk about another voter fraud issue. In California, Shasta County tried to implement some voter integrity measures. And there's a video, Scott, of some hanging on with their vote counting.
Unfortunately, I can't get access to that video.
Well, but you can tell us about the rules they passed to try to have fair and accurate voting. Tell us about the rules and tell us what a liberal judge did there.
So we had in this case, conservative Shasta County. You know, there are very few counties that are conservative in California.
Scott, where is Shasta County for our listeners in Southern California or maybe out of state?
I think it actually touches the Oregon border. It's that far north.
Way up north, right? Way north of Sacramento, way north of San Francisco.
So they sought to sharply restrict mail-in voting, require hand-counted ballots, and impose voter ID on voters. And there was a preliminary injunction issued last Friday that puts the brakes on Measure B. Measure B was written and passed by the voters of Shasta County. And the judge basically said, we don't care what the voters think. You cannot implement this rule.
Yeah, but Scott, since when do liberal judges care about democracy or a republic or what voters want? Come on.
I mean, what's wrong with this picture? I mean, we want voters to participate. We want to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. Democrats want to make it easy to vote and easy to cheat. And we had the perfect, Exhibit A in the LA mayor's race last June, where Spencer Pratt was in a solid second position, way ahead of the socialist Rahm Noodle, and all of the votes that came in after Election Day, 6-1 went to Rahm Noodle, even more so than Karen Bass. And along with that, there was a tax on the LA County ballot. And surprise, surprise, the tax passed based on all those late counted votes. So tell me, who in their right mind would vote for Rahm Noodle and a tax except cheating Democrats? That stuff the ballot boxes and make it. And the rules are such that it is next to impossible to prove voter fraud, and therefore the election stood.
Well, Scott, let's talk about that proof. Engineering background, studied a lot of statistics. There was more than half the vote was counted by Election Day. So there was a drop with tens of thousands of ballots. And Spencer Pratt, who had gotten 30% of the vote of over half, got 0 votes in that drop. I can tell you, as a statistics guy, that is statistically impossible. Just like in the 2020 race, when there were drops of tens of thousands of votes where Biden got them all and Trump got none. Statistically impossible. It's obvious that is only going to happen in the case of voter fraud. Only.
And people sit there and criticize the president for continuing to say that the election was stolen in 2020. And, I always say, look, do you believe in voter fraud? Or do you believe in bank fraud? Yes. Do you believe in tax fraud? Yes. I mean, everybody knows that happens, right? So why is it that you believe in those things and that you would not believe in voter fraud? Of course there's voter fraud. You'd have to be a moron not to believe there's voter fraud. The question is there enough voter fraud to change the outcome of the election? And it, like you say, you can't go and prove that the people that voted were illegally voting, right? Improper votes. You can't go and prove that they were dropped in a mailbox or a voter box after Election Day, probably a mailbox. And it came in after hey, face it, if you know the results from Tuesday night's election, you can stuff the mailbox with ballots on Wednesday morning enough to win the election because you know what you have to overcome, right?
Well, and that's what Democrats are doing in recent election cycles, Scott.
And so they sit there and say, well, we'll have a recount, and all the recounts show that everything was counted properly. There was no voter fraud. Bullcrap. There's no investigation that had been done from 2020 that showed that people that voted were legitimate voters. And you can't go back and fix that. You can't go back and investigate that. And if you go back and look at it, you're going to find onesie, twosie stuff. You're not going to find thousands of people that were illegally voting. It's not like those guys that stuff the mailbox are going to sit there and come forward and say, yeah, put me in jail. I stuffed at least 30,000 ballots in that race. And I know 10 other guys that did the same. It's just not going to happen. And you have to be a moron to believe it. Who thinks that 80 million people voted for dumb Joe Biden? Impossible.
No, that didn't happen. There were millions of fake ballots there, and many of them only had Joe Biden. They were a lot of those drops. They voted only for Biden and nothing else down the ballot.
I mean, Rand Paul, who is not a real Trump ally, right? He's a Republican, but he's not a Trump ally. I mean, he came out and basically said, look, if you take out the data irregularities that happened in the 6 swing states, where they shut down counting, and then they came back and started counting, and you get 200,000 votes cast, and 199,000 went for Joe, and one for Trump. Okay, those are statistical anomalies, right? They are impossibilities. They shouldn't happen. If you just took those votes out of the 2020 election, Trump wins those 6 states. Trump wins the election. So you can't tell me that those votes were legit because they just don't fit any legitimate pattern. We can't prove voter fraud because they've changed the rules so much that we can't prove it. But we know it was stolen. It was a stolen election.
All right, Scott. We've established that Democrats want to steal elections. Let's talk about solutions. One potential solution is the SAVE Act, which John Thune won't schedule a talking filibuster on to force the Democrats.
I won't even blame John Thune alone. Republicans in the Senate have screwed up and not passed it, period.
Well, they also aren't letting Trump have recess appointments, which is unprecedented when you have a Republican Senate and a Republican president. But let's ignore that for a moment. Some Republicans in the Senate want to pass a same-day election act to impose an election day deadline for receiving ballots. That's a pretty common sense approach.
So this is a new proposal by a couple of Republican senators, right?
Yep. So this is different than the SAVE Act.
Right. And all this will do is say that any ballots received after Election Day cannot be counted, period.
Yeah, so that's how it used to be. You got to get your ballots in by Election Day.
So California accepts ballots for 7 days after an election, and then they take 30 days to count those. But those 7 days, nobody would be able to count those ballots if this were to pass.
They got to be in by the time the polls close.
And I know I would take this bet any day. This will not pass in a timely enough manner to be implemented in November. How much do you want to bet?
Well, let's see. The Senate could pass it as part of a reconciliation if they fund enforcement efforts for the states and have block grants to the states to enforce it. Then it becomes a tax and spend bill, which you can pass by reconciliation.
So that means it has to start in the House because it's a revenue bill, and it has to go to the Senate. The House, I think, would probably step up, even with as dysfunctional as it is. The Speaker has really done a good job of keeping all those stray cats together and voting when they need to vote and getting things passed. So let's assume that Speaker Johnson can do his job, get it to the Senate, and now it only needs a majority vote. You don't have to be filibuster proof. And they only need a majority. Do you think that there will actually be a vote and majority? The supporter? You think the Susan Collins of the world and the
because it doesn't have all the provisions of the SAVE Act. It's a way that they can save face, pun intended, and vote for something, but not the whole bill. And that's what Democrats, Scott, are really good at. If they can't get everything, they'll take a little and come back again and take a little and come back again and take a little. So this is that kind of approach.
In California, that would be huge because then it would force the Democrats, instead of waiting until the Wednesday after the election, after the votes have been counted, to fabricate their false votes. They would have to fabricate their false votes the Monday before the election. And so they're going to misrepresent, miscount, miscalculate occasionally.
Well, and TC makes a good point that that stupid Thune has kept the Democrat parliamentarian, which he can fire, and also the majority leader can overrule the parliamentarian. But if the Dem parliamentarian objects to that provision that I suggested being in the reconciliation, it would require the fortitude of the Republicans in the Senate to overrule the parliamentarian and include it anyway. Because the parliamentarian is not elected by the voters. I'm unconcerned with the parliamentarian thinks. I'm concerned with the voters think.
Yeah, what I want to see is get that passed. And like I said, it wouldn't stop all the cheating. It would move the cheating up to before election day rather than after election day. But that would also provide opportunities to prove that there's cheating going on. So it would be a huge step forward if they did that.
Well, to fix the Postal Service problems, to have voter ID, which is on the ballot in California, Proposition 39, which has passed everywhere it's been on the ballot and will probably pass in California. And then to have citizenship proof, same-day voting, so we don't have election season, we actually have election day, like it says in the Constitution. That would be an improvement. All right, Scott. So we've beaten up on voter fraud, and TC makes another good point. J.D. Vance is the president of the Senate, and he could take the Senate chair and overrule the parliamentarian if necessary. And if there's political ramifications, that's what elections are for. But the Republicans have to use their majorities in the House and Senate and the Republican president to pass stuff. Because if the Democrats somehow win the House, they're going to try to pass all this radical DSA stuff, and we can talk about that a little later. And the Trump's just going to say no. He's going to make them shut down the government for 2 years, which they may try to do.
Well, I like the idea. And we were talking a little earlier about recess appointments. So the Constitution provides that, hey, if the Senate's on recess, the president can appoint anybody he wants, basically, to any position he wants, and they're
through
able to do
the
that
end of this congressional term, which would be December.
It isn't for a year. It's until the end of the term.
For the end of the congressional session. So
Okay,
when they
so-
reconvene Congress on January 3rd with the new Senate, the new Congress, starts over. Then those people are automatically out because they weren't confirmed by the Senate.
So, the Senate has been playing these games now for 2 decades where they never go into recess. They have one senator hang around during recess, and he comes in, gavels the meeting open and closed, and somebody's on duty to do that every day. So that technically they're not on recess, according to the Senate rules, that is.
Yeah, which is stabbing Republicans in the back. Every Republican involved in that is stabbing us in the back.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Trump just sit there and make all sorts of appointments, go ahead and install them in place during a recess, and then have the Senate I dare them to file a lawsuit right at the Supreme Court that says, hey, we were not in recess, those are void. And Trump goes, no, you weren't. Your recess doesn't count because it's a joke. And it's clearly a ploy just to get around this constitutional provision. And therefore, screw you, they're legit. And then, are we going to get 6-3 Supreme Court saying to the Senate, yeah, you don't have a legitimate non-recess. You're recessed. The 99 of you are gone, and that's recessed. Screw you. And
all right, Scott, let's do rapid fire here. We've got just a little bit left in our show, and we want to hit a lot of issues that will outrage our audience. The first one is there was a vote to ban pedophile sex offenders from holding public office this week. How do you think the Democrats voted, Scott? That's a leading question.
Who proposed it? California Assembly?
Let's see. The vote was in the Senate.
State Senate, right?
Yeah, the California Senate.
So they're basically saying
Senator Valadares was the one who wanted to do it. And of course, Scott Wiener was one of the ones who wanted to get rid of it. It was AB 2691. Assemblywoman Dawn Addis, Democrat, tried to propose this. So it prohibit persons convicted of sexual assault and human trafficking from running for any state or local office. And the Democrats in the Senate voted it down, Scott. They want pedophiles to continue to run for office.
I'm shocked. They want slavers, sex traffickers, pimps. They're okay. They can serve. Well, I guess that's because that's the Democrat Party. They're a bunch of pimps.
Well, but Scott, they need those pedophiles and other perverts to vote for the wacky way they vote, like the Stop Nick Shirley Act that the legislature passed and Gavin Newsom signed, which is an attempt to prevent investigative journalism that embarrasses Democrat government, which is obviously unconstitutional under the First Amendment. And these Democrats continue to pass this obviously unconstitutional legislation and just say, fine, spend your money and sue us and get a judge to knock it down.
Hey, I've got a great video that on that subject that Carl DeMaio put out. Let me play it. It's only about a minute and a half.
Governor Gavin Newsom posted on Friday how he was outraged that a reporter, a far left-wing activist reporter, she was fired from the Department of Defense as a government employee. Less than 24 hours later, he signs into law AB 2624, the Stop Nick Shirley Act, to make it a crime for citizen journalists to document fraud and post the evidence to the internet. You can't make this crap up. You hypocrite, you little SOB. What do we do? Well, first and foremost, we spread the word. But secondly, I'm asking the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division to intervene to block implementation of the Stop Nick Shirley Act. DOJ can take cases up that free speech is officially dead in California as the state legislature this week passed the Stop Nick Shirley Act and made it a crime for investigative journalists to post video evidence of fraud on the internet. I was arguing against the bill, and what the Democrats did on the floor when I rose in opposition to AB 2624 is they cut off my microphone. As nicknamed the Nick Shirley Act.
Excuse me, Mr. DeMaio. It is not nicknamed that. It has not been defined. Excuse me, Mr. DeMaio. Just wait a moment.
As this all went down, outside the Capitol, Nick Shirley was trying to interview people, and a Democratic staffer named Terry Shantz, who works for Democrat extremist member Tina McKinnon, came out and accosted Nick Shirley.
Fine for looking into immigration support service providers.
Did you guys hear that Nick Shirley has a small penis, allegedly? Hey, gentlemen, have you guys heard these public reports? Nick Shirley allegedly has a small penis.
First, the bill itself is a complete attack on free speech. Then they censor my comments on the floor. But there's another element of attack on free speech that Democrats engage in all the time, and that is what we call the heckler's veto. It's when you show up and you don't want someone to speak, so you scream them down. They do not want you to have freedom of speech. Spread the word that the Stop Nick Shirley Act is on Newsom's desk, AB 2624, and that.
All right, Scott. That's going to be struck down when the federal lawsuits happen or when the DOJ intervenes. So I think it's just a petty attempt by the Democrats when they were caught with their Democrat hands in the fraud cookie jar. So we know what's going to happen there.
I'm not sure it was their hands. Remember, they're a bunch of pedophiles. And I think it's really rude.
Well, we're not going to go there. This is a family show.
And really,
but
I think it's kind of
are they
rude.
corrupt on free speech, Scott, the Democrats in the state assembly are corrupt with steering money to their own family members. So one California assemblyman steered $6 million to his own nonprofit in legislation. How is that not money laundering, Scott? How is that not fraud? How is that not theft of taxpayer money?
So which politician was that?
Yeah, I think we need to name and shame, don't you think?
Absolutely. So
Assemblyman doctor, he's a doctor, Corey Jackson has a nonprofit named CART that his legislative district decided was the nonprofit of the year. He's from Moreno Valley, which is kind of between San Diego and Palm Springs. And he has a master's in social work, and he directs this nonprofit Center Against Racism and Trauma. So I guess if you don't agree with his left-wing view on DEI and race, you're traumatizing people, Scott, because, again, it's another another way of bullying people not to engage in free speech.
Yeah, this guy, first of all, his doctorate in social work is like, give me a stinking break. And of course, he's black, and he set up his own. He's one of those guys that believes, if you go to their website, it talks about white fragility and white privilege, and he still believes in all and trying to sell all of that crap. But now you got, like you said, you got $6 million taxpayer dollars going into this nonprofit, which his family works at, so they're drawing paychecks on. How is this guy not in jail again? Refresh my memory.
Because the Democrats control the state because we got voter fraud. Well, but Scott,
Attorney
one of the other
General
ways they waste money.
Okay, got it.
One of the other ways they waste money is on this train to nowhere, the high-speed rail project that we all know is never going to be finished. So there's a little city named Shafter near Bakersfield, and they know that thing's never going to be finished. So they made an arrangement with Lennar Homes, a very large developer, and they're going to build 1,200 homes in the same area of Highway 99 where this rail authority was supposed to build this train to nowhere. Even they know it's never going to be built, Scott.
I think that's hysterical. I guess they tried to talk the high-speed rail authority into routing the tracks around their town. They didn't want to have anything to do about it or do with it, and they refused. And so now they've approved a housing project right in the middle.
Which means they're going to raise the value of that land, and they're going to have to pay a lot more money in eminent domain if they want to tear them down.
Yeah, I'd love to see them just build the houses and say screw you, and make them go around the town. I mean,
all right,
they're not going to stop in their town. They're just going to have this stupid high-speed rail going right through the middle of it. Who wants that? Get all the negatives without any positives.
All right. Well, Scott, there's a very important proposition on the ballot, the asset tax. They're calling it a billionaire's tax, which is kind of fraudulent because in the legislature can come back and do it again and again, and they can lower the threshold. So I know a number of productive people who are planning to move out of California if that thing passes because they know the legislature is going to lower the amount and come after everybody's assets. And what's really insidious about this is if you have a home, which is kind of illiquid, or if you have stock that's not publicly traded and is illiquid, they want to tax 5% of that, even though it's illiquid. So they could actually bankrupt people on a cash flow basis or force them to sell something at a fire sale price to pay the tax.
So we have Prop 13, which forbids the state from taxing our houses at greater than 1%.
But how do they justify the so-called mansion tax in Los Angeles City then? It's a transfer tax, maybe.
Well, that one was a transfer tax, but this is an asset tax. That's like a property tax, and they're defining property to everything you own, not
worldwide, not just in California, worldwide.
So like you say,
there's a number of attacks that can be made constitutionally. California doesn't get to tax worldwide assets. Number one. Number two, Mark Cuban, who's a liberal billionaire, he warned that startup founders would be idiots to stay in the state of California if the 5% billionaire tax measure moves forward because of that problem with illiquid taxes. And he said he would not invest in any California company if it passes. So Silicon Valley and the what do they call that area in Venice? The something else valley, and the tech areas in San Diego, the biotech areas, venture capital and private equity would dry up in the state of California if this passes. So goodbye jobs, goodbye job creators. There'll be an accelerated exit, and that means lower tax base in California, less money to pay teachers unions and fire unions and police unions, less money for the government to steal through fake nonprofits and whatnot, Scott. And they're not going to stop. The union, the SEIU that put this thing on the ballot wants to take it nationwide.
This is the union, SEIU. This is the union president, Dave Regan. He's the one that basically told the Democrat Party and Newsom, screw you, I'm putting it on the ballot. He's not pulling it off. And he wants to tax they just want more and more government, more and more money. And all the producers, like I said, half the billionaires already left. And it's not like they just leave and they take their money with them. They're taking their companies with them. They're taking their employment base with them. What was the new company that just moved to Texas?
It's hard to. There's so many, I can't think of them all.
Yeah, there's another new company that was announced in the paper yesterday. Took them the year, but they moved everything out of California. They didn't announce it until they were gone. They didn't sit there and say, "Hey, we're going to move." They moved, got everything out, and then they announced it.
Smart.
I'm sure
That's
the
very
out
smart.
to employees, but
well, and
yeah.
TC makes the point that Prop 40 has a retroactivity clause. That sounds like an ex post facto law to me, TC, and I think that part of it will be unconstitutional. And I think it's a taking without just compensation under the Fifth Amendment. So there's a lot of bases for a lawsuit.
People have to realize the economy sucks. And it's the Democrats and the communists that are making it that way.
You're talking about in California, Scott, right?
No, in general, certainly like the gas prices you see behind me, which used to be these high fictional numbers, now are real numbers. And the fact that they're $2 a gallon higher than any other state tells you that California has a particular problem. But no, we've got cost of living issues across the country, and they are Democrat spawned. And there's no relief. Look at what they're doing with the tires. They're requiring.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. First, let's finish up on the wealth tax. Liberal Congressman Ro Khanna in the Silicon Valley, he must be ticking off some of his constituents, says the wealth tax must not stop at billionaires, Scott. He wants to get the legislature to lower it and do more of these taxes right away if this passes. But unfortunately, Ro Khanna buried into money, and his immense stock market wins are better than Pelosi's. Well, how can that be if he's a congressman? Isn't he spending his time being a congressman? How does he have so much time to be a stock analyst, Scott? Unless,
don't you know,
representing the Silicon Valley, yeah, I think we need an investigation to see if he's getting insider tips.
Hey, by the way that these congressmen increase their wealth when they're in Congress tells me they are the smartest investors on the planet. Either that or they have all the inside knowledge and they don't get penalized for insider knowledge. Oh, wait, that's what's happening. Oh, sorry.
Exactly. All right, well, let's talk about the tires, Scott. That's going to really inflame our audience, no pun intended. This California State Energy Commission, not even the legislature and the governor, dictated that we can't use certain tires in the future. And they just decided all on their own. What's with that?
So here we have a bunch of bureaucrats who decided that we're going to save the planet and reduce carbon emissions by reducing the amount of gasoline used by requiring these tires that have less rolling resistance. Therefore, everybody's gas mileage goes up. And we're going to require that by what they say, 2030?
Yeah, there's a date certain, and it's complicated. But the concern that many business owners and California drivers have is that there will be no tires available for all the cars that are more than 5 years old.
Or they're not going to sell the tires except the low rolling resistance tires. And let's say that they plan ahead enough and they have enough of them. Just like these gas prices behind me, those tires are much more expensive. You're not going to have the choice of buying an alternative. And I know I've got some black market.
A lot of people are going to drive to Las Vegas or Yuma, Arizona to get their tires now, aren't they, Scott?
I've got some black market tires I brought in from Arizona. Does anybody want to buy any? Yeah, you're gonna see that. But the tires are more expensive. It's just going to raise the cost of living more. You're not going to save enough gas to pay for the higher price of your tires. Well, I take that back. I guess if the price of gas goes up to $20 a gallon, maybe you will save enough on your gas to justify the higher tire cost. we won't be able to afford rent, but we can
Well, so
afford 20.
Scott, our listener Tammy has a question. Are Californians tired of the Democrat majority in California? And she posits that if we had voter ID laws, we might find out.
Wait a minute. Did she say tired? Was that a joke?
I guess it was.
I don't, unless we wake up, I mean, it's the frog in the water, right? They turn it up a little bit here. You got to buy more expensive tires. You got to have a little bit fancier gasoline. You're not getting.
And then TC asks if they're going to empower the bureaucrats to do annual tire inspections. Remember, we talked about the Democrats wanting to pass a law where you have to get a license or a permit to buy an appliance at Home Depot or Lowe's or one of those companies. And so if you want to buy a new air conditioner, a new dishwasher, they want you to buy a license so they can notify the city and make sure you're getting it installed in a permitted way and paying the city their money.
Oh, let me take that a step further. As an architect, we already have. If you just come in there and get a permit to replace your hot water heater, right?
Yep.
They want you to sign an affidavit saying that you've got smoke detectors and carbon dioxide detectors and low flow toilets before they allow you to put a new hot water heater in. How hard is it going to be to add to that list and say you must have a electric appliance or a certified gas appliance that uses under a certain amount before we let you install, fill in the blank, right? New air conditioning.
So what are people going to do, Scott? They're going to buy that water heater in Yuma, Arizona or Las Vegas and have it shipped here.
Yeah, but if they come in to put that new hot water heater in and they get a permit, right?
Why
then
would
they're
you
going
get
to
a permit if you bought it in Las Vegas?
Then they're going to check the stove to make sure that that's in compliance.
Scott,
and that's what you're going to get you.
No, you have the installer come from Nevada and bring the water heater and put it in, and he leaves. Have a nice day.
Well, you already have a lot of homeowners that don't get the required permits, and the
Scott,
contractors.
That's shocking. That's shocking, Scott. Are you sure?
We call it bootlegging in the professional world. And yes, you bootleg things in without permits all the time because the permit is more hassle than actually installing the equipment, right? It's harder to get a permit for a new hot water heater than it is to actually install the hot water heater. So why would you bother with a freaking permit?
Well, I think that's federal legislation that's been stalled because of our incompetent Republicans in the House and Senate and our traitorous Democrats. That they were going to streamline the permitting process from a federal standpoint to lower the cost of the affordability of housing, because all these permits add to the cost of housing. Whether it's
they may require the states to lower it, but the feds don't have anything to do with building permits other than national EPA type stuff, Corps of Engineer type stuff.
Well, I'm going to argue with you on that because the Interstate Commerce Clause could state that it's important that there's national mobility and that people have affordable housing, and the federal government finds that the cost of local permits are making housing unaffordable, and therefore we're going to either limit them, we're going to limit the time, and we're going to limit the cost of permits. So if you want federal funding, all permits have to be issued within a week, and they can only cost this much, or you lose your federal funding.
Being the federalist that I am, I'd be really against that because the federal government does not do anything well. And I'm already having trouble dealing with state and local governments. And if I have to deal with the feds too, that's not going to make things easier. It will make things worse. And the state government's inserting themselves in the middle of the local government issue and permits, and they are making things worse. So I already have proof that that's what's happening. No, we don't want it. What we want to do is, now, if banks and other entities like that sat there and said, we're not going to loan on a project unless you use the Permit Streamlining Act. We're going to redline the city of Irvine unless they simplify their building permit process. Then you might see reform because Irvine will go, well, what are we doing wrong? And then they'll try and rectify it. But I'm not holding my breath there either The state
All right,
keeps
well,
saying,
Scott, California Senator Tony Strickland from Huntington Beach, North Orange County, is demanding the
Great.
resignation of the Energy
Great
Board
man.
members over this rule.
over the tires. Fire their butts.
Well,
I agree.
don't hold your breath. All right,
Wait a
now
second,
let's
wait a second.
transition
Okay,
quickly
I won't
because
hold my
we've got a lot of ground to cover and not much time. Government worker pay. I'll bet this will shock our audience. 250 California state employees make over $600,000 a year. Hundreds of cops in San Francisco make between $500,000 and $900,000 a year, while San Francisco runs a massive deficit. Huh?
What can they do for that kind of money?
Probably run drug rings and prostitution rings if they're making that much money, Scott. Oh, they're policemen.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. They
I don't get it. So what do they say? California unmasked as prison shrinks. They're one of the ones that make them. Well, you know what? If you're going to deal with the psychology of a prisoner, yeah, you'd have to pay me a lot of money to do that too. But
but think about it. The way police are not getting supported, but when to fund the police liberals, would you want to be a cop where when you do your job, they're going to prosecute you for just doing your job and try to throw you in jail? I wouldn't do that job for any amount of money.
And then you look at some of the other people that are getting the high salary are finance guys. Well, if you're investing in the CalPERS $1 billion fund, you don't want some Yahoo bureaucrat doing it. You want somebody with skill, proven abilities. And those guys are being hired in the private sector at $600,000 to $1 million easily. So there are going to be some cases where that's going to happen, but it shouldn't be hundreds of employees. It should be a dozen employees or dozens of them.
Some quick hits, Scott. Prop 3 will allow these temporary taxes to become permanent taxes. I'm voting no. We talked about the hospice fraud in California, and that there are many commentators that are saying that they looked the other way while it happened. I want to hit on the education system problems. There's so many. Gavin Newsom is now dodging the SAT question of whether the SAT should be required for UCs and Cal State schools. But 1,000 University of California professors, many of whom are very liberal, are now warning that college students can't do basic math. Years of DEI and low standards and social promotion in K through 12 schools and bad math curricula, of which I am an expert, having taught math and having 3 engineering degrees. The math sucks today compared to the math of 40 and 50 years ago. The curriculum sucks, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And no wonder the kids can't do basic math. No wonder they can't do basic math, because there's an emphasis on indoctrination and not teaching math. But what's interesting is Californians in a proposition voted to spend $1 billion on K through 12 arts, but the schools are returning the money, Scott, because they can't comply with the rules. And you know how much those liberal schools want that money for art to portray liberal propaganda. So if they're returning the money, you know how bad the impossible the rules must be.
Yeah, the public schools, it's like they can't do anything where they don't want more money, right? So if they're turning back money, you know that even the unions realize that some strings are not worth getting the money for. But, the real solution for our education system, I continue to advocate, you've done the same, and that is the public school system should die. The public school system should not exist. It should not be the state's job to educate our kids. It is the parents' job to educate the kids. The parents can choose to enlist churches, private schools, or maybe they do their own homeschooling. And with the internet availability and everything else, homeschooling is the best option if you can do it. But the public schools, just because it is the state, they will never be as good as they were. The only reason that our public school systems were good at one time was because basically they were a Christian school system, not a public school system.
Well, I got Los Angeles City Schools until 50 years ago was good because they taught the 3 R's without propaganda, and then the liberals got a hold of it and destroyed the system.
Well, they got rid of prayer
They
school.
destroyed Los Angeles City schools, and they're destroying the other public schools.
They basically took God out of the classroom, and the classroom became corrupt, ugly, and ineffective. So, and I'm not sure I want the government to put God back in the classroom. I'd rather get rid of the classroom and let the churches and the parents put God back in. So
Scott, let's talk about the crime wave in California. It's gotten so bad that Fresno is considering letting prosecutors carry concealed firearms.
Well, what do you expect? They close down prisons and let the bad guys out, and the judges have no problem with that.
Well, and because of Newsom's soft parole law, we have these nut jobs getting out of prison early.
You heard what Mondami did today, right? He got
the
this
nut job Muslim mayor of commie mayor of New York.
Yeah, there was a prisoner in Rikers that died, and he eulogized him as, oh, this poor guy. We shouldn't have people dying in Rikers, and we don't even know the circumstances of the death yet. And he's already out there apologizing for it, right?
Shooting his mouth off, yes.
Well, this scumbag should have been deported, wasn't. He was arrested 27 times. He was out on parole, cashless parole. So basically, he's out on his own recognizance.
Zero
and
bail.
He murdered this woman, and he was in Rikers awaiting trial. And he's mourning this murderer that died in the hands of the prison somehow, some way. It's kind of like, we need more accidents like this. This guy was a scumbag, did not deserve to live on this planet.
Well, Scott, that's the problem. When illegal aliens rape and kill Americans, Democrats still want to keep them here. Laken Riley was a young nursing student who was attacked by an illegal alien who shouldn't have been in this country. He held her down and he beat her skull with a rock over and over till he crushed her skull in while he was raping her. And Democrats want to keep people like that in our country.
That's right.
Democrats are not just wrong, they are evil, Scott. Anyone who wants people like that in our country is not somebody we can compromise with. We cannot have bipartisanship with. We must defeat them because they hate our country and they hate its people.
And you certainly shouldn't elect them as mayor of the biggest city in our country. So you have to say that I don't care if it's a special election, low turnout. I don't give a crap. Mondami shouldn't be president. You should deport his butt. I say president, shouldn't be mayor. You should deport his butt. Get him and his rich family out of here. They are anti-American, anti-Constitution. We don't need losers like that. And people who vote for them, they should have their rights of voting taken away.
Scott, we have other crime problems now. You've seen a lot of people are complaining about these e-bikes driving recklessly on suburban streets. And they had a street takeover the other day, which was cars, and they then went out and ransacked a family store with power tools. And on 91 freeway, about a week ago, a bunch of e-bikers did a takeover, 50 of them, in Long Beach on the 91 freeway and shut the freeway down. The Democrats have created a culture of lawlessness in every way.
Hey, just as a note, I don't think the 91 freeway goes all the way to Long Beach, but that's another issue.
It goes to, Cerritos. I mean, it goes pretty close to Long Beach.
But I totally agree.
Actually, the 91 and the 605, I think, is right on the edge of Long Beach.
So it's one of those things that, we have lawlessness in California because the Democrats don't want to punish it. Instead, they want to get rid of the police. We're fighting police forces like Los Angeles that are 40% understaffed. And then we wonder why we can't stop idiots like this from going out and taking over freeways and doing this stuff. At what point does anarchy happen and people start taking over themselves? I mean, imagine if you had a car or a truck and you decided, hey, the e-bike I got in my way, sorry, I ran over him.
Well, by the way, that's what's happening when people are surrounding cars. When you have these protests where you have illegal aliens or people surrounding cars, and they're pulling drivers out like Reginald Denny in 1992. People saw that video. They're not going to be that Reginald Denny anymore. So if people are trying to pull you out of your car, better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
And fortunately, there have been a couple of judges anyway that have sided with those drivers and said, yes, that driver had legitimate fear for his life, and he was able to do that in self-defense. And those idiots that got run over, they shouldn't have been doing it.
Well,
I don't know
Scott,
that
in addition to the crime wave, Democrats want to sexualize children. And in Sanger, California, which is near Fresno,
here's my shocked look.
high school kids were as young as 14 were shown graphic abortion, sex, and transgender art. So Democrats and other liberals are in the teachers unions are trying to sexualize children. You know, when we were kids, we thought about baseball games and ice cream cones. Sex was something for adults. And
we didn't know what it was, and we didn't care.
Well, the point is, you let a child be a child. Let a child have a childhood of innocence.
No,
liberals won't do that today.
They're sexualizing the kids to take them away from the parents and the allegiance of the parents so they can mold them into the image that they want.
Yeah,
that's why the
Antifa people.
The public school system has to end.
Well, and part of that is look at Newsom. I mean, he had an affair with his best friend's wife, and she's the lady he had the affair with is now doing a lot of talking. But why is he selling his $7.5 million mansion now? Can you think about why he's doing that, Scott?
Oh, obviously because the wine cellar is too small. He needs a bigger wine cellar. It's only 5,000 bottles.
Oh, let them eat cake, huh? So he's going to buy a bigger place. Is that what you're saying?
He already did in Marin County.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's that $10.5 million mansion he bought in Marin County under an LLC.
Well, maybe he needs to sell the other one, the $7.5 million one, to pay down that debt.
No, I think
he's not going to be getting all the salary from his wife's nonprofit anymore, and from his job as governor. He's going to be unemployed soon.
I think it's the running for president and doesn't want to be perceived as having multiple multi-million-dollar mansions. Just one.
Oh, I see. Or like when he was hanging out with the Getty family when he was younger. Okay, I got it.
He grew up with the Getty family, yes. And
speaking, Scott, of the governor race, the hand-picked liberal, Xavier Becerra, is now being branded as the largest human trafficker in American history. Because when he was HHS secretary, they let all these unaccompanied minors in and let them disappear in the country, and they're ending up as work slaves and as sex slaves in human trafficking.
Or murdered, or, I'd say worse, but what's worse than murder? He allowed, 414?
No, I'll tell you what's worse. I know someone in the lettered agencies who went on a special mission to a foreign country to get back American kids that were sex trafficked and stolen from their families. And I'm informed they killed all the Johns and all the people in the distribution channel and brought them back. Another thing they did is somebody's daughter disappeared in a mall. Teenage daughter disappeared in a mall on the East Coast, Maryland or Virginia. And dad wrote a big check, and they found her in a brothel in Barcelona a few days later, drugged up and being prepared to be a prostitute. And they again killed all the people at the brothel and brought her home.
So are you telling me they should kill Becerra?
What I'm telling you is,
I'm just trying to clarify here.
No. What I'm telling you is the people engaged in human trafficking that are selling kids into slavery are selling them to some bad people who end up torturing them sexually and killing them to prevent them from testifying against them. That is a death sentence for those kids. They never come back. And so,
and Becerra had
what I'm telling you is that I would support the federal government declaring war on human traffickers, drug dealers, and terrorists, and killing every one of them in a 1 or 2 or 3 day period worldwide. Kill them all. Anybody who's kidnapping a child so that they can be sexually tortured and murdered, Just kill them.
And so Becerra had 414,000 unaccompanied minors that he let in, and he doesn't know where like 326,000 of them are. Trump has been able to successfully find 15,000 of them, but there's still a lot of missing children. You know, these guys sat there and bragged about, we don't want to have, separate the kids from the families. Well, it used to be that the United States would separate the children from the so-called parents, and they would do a DNA test, and they would find out, is this person really their father, mother, uncle, whatever? And if it wasn't, because they were trafficking the kid and the kid was too afraid to say the truth, then they were able to detain, arrest, and prosecute these guys, these animals. But the Biden administration didn't ask questions. I see nothing. I know nothing. They were Sergeant Schultz on us. And there's still 320,000 kids that are suffering as a result of that. And that was totally a result of Becerra. And Becerra's on tape from a whistleblower saying that we, meaning the Department of HHS, needed to handle those unaccompanied minors faster, like a Henry Ford assembly line, so that they get them out, because it was costing the agency $1,000 a day to take care of them. So he had no intention of doing what was right. His intention was to process them and, give them their welcome wagon and a pat on the back.
No, to send them off to the human traffickers. That's what he intended to do.
And let the human traffickers take them away. And sponsors, all this stuff, they didn't check. And they don't have a way to go back and check, because, face it, they didn't exactly give them the true name and address of their sponsors. They made it up. And so Becerra ended up...
Scott. All right. Well, Scott, as we close, let's leave our viewers with one more funny one. Now, ICE wants to use electric gloves for combative arrests of illegal aliens. And the liberals are going wild over that one. We'll leave everybody with a good laugh on the way out the door today. Thank you.
Is that like a taser glove? It's like I touch you and you get tased.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. TC, William, Magdalena, thank you for joining us tonight. Stephanie, thank you for joining us tonight. We'll be back at 6:30 next Thursday. It's already going to be September. We're just a few days next Thursday away from Labor Day and the start of ballot season. So we will see you next Thursday, 6:30 California time on California Free Radio. Scott, what are the X addresses for Mike and for you where people can see this show or the tape delay?
I'll put them on the bottom of the screen here. Vote for Mike. He's running. Donate to his campaign. You can find him at netter.vote. Netter.vote. And definitely you can spread the word about California Free Radio from behind the blue curtain. You got at Netter Mike and at TaxFighter7 on X. You can watch anytime and in reruns. They stay on the feed, and you can watch it as many times as you like.
All right, good night, Scott. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Good night, Jack.
For the song.
Bye.
They said trust the experts while they locked up the town. Gave us 12 more genders. Took our paychecks down. Flag on the porch. They call you extreme while they cash big checks and scream on your screen. Tear up the script like it's 1776. Hey, hey! They're allergic to bricks and sticks. All bark, blue check, big talk, no grit. We the ones they can't censor or fix. Oh, sing it loud, that's the trick. Red, white, and really